Hello everyone, my name is Barbara and I would like to welcome you all to our latest Novedge webinar episode. In this week's episode, BIM for the small business owner. With so many of the large AEC firms moving to building information modeling, what does that mean for the small business owner? Is BIM the right decision for you? Join presenter and Autodesk Evangelist Lynn Allen as she discusses the advantages of moving to BIM on both the business and personal level, along with some suggestions on kickstarting a successful BIM rollout. Lynn Allen speaks to more than 30,000 users annually, and for the past 22 years, she has written a column for Cadalyst magazine, and it's the voice behind the popular Cadalyst videos, AutoCAD Tips and Tricks with Lynn Allen. Before we get going, here's an overview of what we do at Novedge. Novedge is one of the largest online stores for design software. We offer a huge assortment of software solutions that cater to virtually every designer's need. Put us to the test and come visit our webpage at novedge.com. And for more daily software news and limited time promotions, pay a visit to the Novedge blog and follow us on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. Coming up in 2 weeks, meet Vectorworks Landmark 2015. We are delighted to welcome Vectorworks expert Tamsin Slater to deliver another webinar. Tamsin will be taking the opportunity to show some of the fantastic new features available within Vectorworks Landmark 2015. Last but not least, today's webinar is free and will be recorded live. So if you want to watch this or any webinar episode in our collection, just head over to Novedge's YouTube or Vimeo channels. And now, I'm going to give the stage to Lynn Allen and make her the presenter. So Lynn Allen, here's your baton, and please take it and go ahead. Let's see. I can see your screen.
Okay, can you see my screen?
I sure can.
Okay, perfect. And I think we need to give Barbara the award for starting not only on time, but actually a couple of minutes early. So I'm totally impressed. So hopefully we're all on board now. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. As we saw, there's some people joining us from quite far away. So welcome. For some of you, it's probably very late at night. And a big thank you. I appreciate the fact that Novedge invited me to participate in this webcast with you. And I do quite a bit of presentations on BIM in general, making the move to BIM. Usually my audiences are mixed audiences, but sometimes they're large business owners, sometimes they're small business owners. And this webcast, of course, is really focused on those of you who have the smaller businesses. And BIM is probably all around you, and you're trying to figure out whether or not you should make the move to BIM and kind of how you do it if you do decide to make that decision, right? So I want to just comment on a couple of things. We're going to lay the groundwork here. I'm going to talk to you generally about BIM. I find that a lot of presentations are really high level and overwhelming, so hopefully this one will bring it down to something that's easily digestible and that you will feel comfortable with and you'll fully understand. I would love that if you got off this webcast and you said, I get it, I totally get it. That would be great. So I'm also going to convince you. I'm going to also spend some time convincing you why you should make the move to BIM, and this is part of it. So these are stats from the McGraw-Hill Smart Market Report. You can download these reports free of charge. There are many different reports, McGraw-Hill Smart Market Reports. There's some for construction, for infrastructure. Just pick the industry that you happen to be in. They are facts and figures. I love facts and figures. So you'll see a lot of that in this presentation. I'm not big into generalizations. I want numbers behind everything. So you'll probably see a lot of that in this presentation. But according to the McGraw-Hill Smart Market Report, and they do extensive research on all things BIM, it's predicted that within the next 2 years that 50% of all of the RFPs, all the requests for proposals in the AEC industry are going to require BIM. That's a lot, okay? So that if you decide that you're not going to go the BIM route, you decide you're not going to buy into BIM, you're not going to develop any BIM expertise, you yourself are going to have to win twice as many non-BIM RFPs just to stay where you are right now. And that's with no forward progress. I think that's kind of a big deal. So that's something for you to think about as you're making the decision to move to BIM or not move to BIM. And then I'll tell you from a larger scale that governments all around the world are demanding BIM. And this was, the UK was actually one of the first countries to really mandate BIM, and they basically gave everybody a four-year goal, that if you were going to do any work with the government, that you had to include BIM, at least level 2 BIM, in your, in the project. So that's kind of a big deal. I applaud the UK for really leading the cause there. And then since then, the European Union has jumped on board. You can take a look at this slide, and you'll see that all over the world, people are jumping on board. Governments are jumping on board with government-led BIM initiatives. And you'll see there in America, there are quite a few, and most of you are probably from America. You have the Army Corps of Engineers, the General Services Administration. You have a variety of states that have jumped on board, the Veteran Affairs. There's just, you can see that this is starting to snowball, and that more government agencies are requiring BIM, and ultimately that leads to the public sector to start to demand BIM. I mean, you may not be involved in any of those government projects, but I certainly think it's a good predictor of the future. And so I definitely can see the writing on the wall, right? The AEC industry is moving to BIM. BIM is not going to fail. There are too many successful companies out there who have jumped on the BIM bandwagon, and they've really reaped all the benefits of it. And one of the good things of my job, I guess, good and bad, is that I get to travel all over the world. I'm constantly exhausted, but I get to see firsthand different companies and different governments and small firms, big firms that have made the move to BIM, that are moving to BIM, and I can see, absolutely see, that that's the way the world's going to go. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about the definition of BIM, some of the advantages of BIM. I don't want to sit here and scare you. That's not very productive. So I want to show you some of the great things that you will reap as an advantage of making the move to BIM, and then we'll talk about how to get you and your staff on board, really get buy-in. And I'll talk about some basic implementation techniques. That's probably another webcast for another time, so I'll only talk at a fairly high level, but hopefully you'll get enough information so you can move forward, or at least know where to go to move forward. All right, so BIM. What the heck is BIM? And I can assure you there are like a zillion different definitions of BIM. We know it stands for Building Information Modeling. Truly the most important part of BIM is that I. The I for information, and that's really what sets the land of BIM apart from what we've been doing for years in the land of CAD. So if you wanted to take a look at the National BIM Standard Committee from the United States, it's a pretty long definition. Well, we can take a look at it. It's BIM is a digital representation of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. That could be a building, it could be a bridge, it could be a roadway, it could be a variety of things. It's a shared knowledge resource for information, and I think that's really important too. You'll be able to share your knowledge across all disciplines, across all industry, to ultimately create a better building, bridge, roadway, whatever the situation is. And also you can make decisions, reliable decisions, during the life cycle of the product, whatever it is that you happen to be building. And ideally, starting from the earliest conception all the way to the demolition of the project. That's a pretty long-winded explanation. This one's a little shorter. I like this one better. This is the Autodesk definition. BIM is an intelligent model-based process. Key on process there, provides value across the life cycle of a project. Way easier, way simpler. I'm pretty sure that for all these definitions of BIM, there are a lot of people arguing in a room to decide what the true definition is. You probably don't care. You just need to get it. We just need you to get it. You don't need to know the exact definition. Nobody's going to ask you that, hopefully. So, and also it should be noted that BIM is not a software. This is so important. It's a process. So important. You can't go down to the BIM store and buy yourself some BIM. I get asked that all the time. Buy me some BIM. I need to buy me some BIM, okay? There are tools that you can buy to help you be successful with BIM. Tools such as the Autodesk Building Design Suite, the Infrastructure Suite, and or Civil 3D, or Revit, depending on how you decide to purchase your products. But these are not BIM, they are just tools that are going to help you be successful in BIM, and it's really important that you understand that. So I will say one of the things that I have seen in my time working with companies is that I think in many ways small businesses just do a much better job at making the move to BIM. They're nimble, they're limber, they do a better job at change management. They don't have to go through all kinds of teams to get approval. They don't need approval from the board of directors or investors. And really the biggest barrier to making the move to BIM is the fact that it's a process change. Big companies do not do well with process changes. That's where you guys come in. You can actually say, we are going to move to BIM and actually do it. You could do it today. You could do it tomorrow. You don't have to go through a lengthy agreement with everybody at the top of the company. So that's another great advantage of being a small business, is that you can just move and jump faster than larger businesses. So just kind of let's go back to talking about the definition of BIM, right? So some of the advantages. I love the fact that, and this is one of the key pieces, is that cross-functional teams get a chance to work together, right? It used to be that the architect would do his job and then he would pass it on to, who knows, maybe the civil engineer, the MEP folks, structural, and so on, eventually to construction. And it was this one, it was just passed along the line, and oftentimes each members of the new teams had to start all over and do a lot of drawing back in the CAD days themselves. Well, now you have a model, and it just gets smarter and smarter and smarter as it gets pushed along the supply chain. And it's such a smarter way to work, and it's such an easier way to work. And what exactly is a BIM model? Okay, so just so you know, when you say BIM model, that's very redundant. The fact that I have it in this presentation is a terrible thing because it's building information modeling model. But you will hear that all the time. You can decide to accept it or not accept it. But anyway, so what is this model that we're talking about? If you want to be cool, don't say BIM model like I just did. So it's an intelligent model, right? It has smart objects. It just has so much more intelligence than a CAD drawing. It knows materials, specifications. It knows how much things cost. It knows how to assembly procedures, how to put the components together, the manufacturer, and it's really big into relationships, and that's the key. We're used to working with lines and arcs and circles in AutoCAD. These are doors, these are windows, these are walls, and they know how to relate to each other. And most of my examples are buildings. You should just know that in this presentation because I think we all know what a building is. So it's just easier to relate to buildings. And everybody gets it, right? We live in one. It's a 3D digital model to assemble the same way the building is constructed, or a bridge, or a roadway, whatever. Once again, pick your project of choice. But that's very different than CAD. You don't think about that when you're drawing a CAD drawing, but you do need to think about that when you're assembling a BIM model. And it's also very, very important that you know it's not just what you look at, it's not just the geometric information, but there's a bunch of non-graphic information that lives behind the model that is extremely valuable. That's that that informational aspect, all right? And I just like this quote, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a BIM model is worth 1,000,000. And that is absolutely true because of all of the information that goes on behind the BIM model. Once again, redundant, don't say that. I'm just going to say model now from now on. I have to train myself. And along with that, another advantage is that you don't have nearly as many construction change orders. There's a huge reduced number of RFIs. That's because you can check everything out before you get to the construction phase, which I'll show you in more detail. But by far, the largest amount of waste in the building life cycle, and I'm sure no doubt in other projects, is the construction aspect. And it's estimated that 25% of construction dollars are wasted every year. And that also includes materials, the terrible waste of materials, time, effort, having to redo things. All of that will definitely be cut down when you make the move to BIM. So of course building owners love that, right? Because it will cost them ultimately less money. And I just think this is a great picture, right? Change orders are expensive. And you can kind of see the original contract and the little dingy in the lower right-hand corner. So definitely those change orders really add up to a lot of money over time. Another great advantage is that when you have the whole model, you put the whole model together, you can eliminate the clashes before you get to the construction site, which is extremely valuable and saves tons of money. That way you're solving problems early on. You're not waiting until you're in a state of emergency on the construction site. It's just so much safer, and it's so much, saves you so much more money when you can get rid of those clashes. And this is just kind of showing you a video of one of our products called BIM 360 Glue. We also have a great product called Navisworks that allows you to take all the different models, regardless of the file type, even if they're not Autodesk products that were used to create the model, put them all together and detect clashes. You can see on here, red is bad, right? We all know that red is bad. But before you got to the construction site, you would know that these are problems that you have to deal with. I just got a message. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Let me know if you cannot hear me. I got a message saying it probably didn't like the video. I bet you gave me that information because it didn't like the video. Hopefully you all were able to see it. But in this situation with BIM 360 Glue, you can actually send an email to the design team that, that was responsible and say, hey, your ductwork is clashing with some of the other aspects of the building, the columns or whatever the situation is. And they can take a look at that, they can fix it, and then you can rerun the clash to make sure that you haven't broken something else in the process while you were fixing it, right? You can run as many clash detections as you want. It's a great software program. It's a cloud app. That's also another presentation for another day, but something you can do with BIM that you certainly cannot do with the 2D model. Yep, let's go down. Looks like it's probably a little bit of issues there with doing this on a webcast. So then there's also an increase in prefabrication. So you can get more work done before you even get to the construction site, right? And this is another fact down there from McGraw-Hill. 73% of contractors forecast that model-driven prefabrication is going to improve their returns. And the construction industry has really, really jumped onto the world of BIM. Some other things you just can't do with a 2D drawing, right? With a model, a 3D model, smart, intelligent model, I almost said BIM model, you can do energy analysis, structural analysis, construction, environmental, all types of analyses you can do on a model to make sure that you're building the best building that you can, the best road that you can, the best bridge that you can, etc. Very valuable. And then you can even take it to the next level. This is further down the road. You don't need to worry about this right now, but you can add in scheduling for the 4D aspect of it and cost estimation and quantification, the 5D aspect of it. And this happens to be, hopefully you can see this. I know that we tested this earlier. We could see it when there was 2 of us online, maybe not with a whole bunch more online. But this is actually a project that's very close to where I live, where you can easily see that at any stage in the game, how far along this roadway would be as far as completion is concerned. It's very impressive. You can see how much money should have been spent at that point in time. It's a great project. They've done a really beautiful job with it. I use this road to get to the airport, and they've managed to reroute us so efficiently you barely even know that the project is going on. But that's because they were able to figure everything out ahead of time. And then another really valuable thing, especially I think to the small business owner, is the fact that you can really create some stunning visualizations. These visualizations will help you win projects, they'll help you communicate effectively, and you don't have to have a ton of money. You don't have to have a ton of expertise to create some amazing visualizations. And if you buy the building design suite or the infrastructure design suite, you do get software that's really pretty easy to use to help you make some amazing renderings and visualizations. And you're just kind of taking a look at this on the left-hand side of the screen. This is a rendering of a water treatment plant. This is before they built it. And then you can see, look how close it looks to the actual treatment plant after it's been built. It's always good to know what the goal is, right? It's good to know what you're building and what it's supposed to look like. But many of us, of course, have to communicate projects to win proposals, or even after the proposal has been accepted and you're the ones that won it, you still need to communicate what the ultimate goal is. And I'm sure many of us do it like this, right? We draw, we show, we do PowerPoints, sketch on napkins, whatever the situation is. And hopefully you can see this video in the upper right-hand corner. How much better would it be if you were at a client meeting? Here we have a situation where we have a roadway, and you could actually show the client what the ultimate goal is and what your view is of it. So much more impressive. And I'm telling you, it's not that hard to get something like this. It looks hard, and it's super impressive. I promise you, if you go in with a proposal like this, you're going to get a lot of attention. You have a much better chance. And this isn't something that costs a ton of money to do. So there was a study that was done a couple of years ago by CG Architect, and really no surprise that 90% of the people that were interviewed said that they were more likely to win competitive bids. And community support, for those of you that need that, with visuals that they created using some of the Autodesk visualization tools like Showcase or 3ds Max Design, or even the rendering capabilities that exist inside of Civil 3D and inside of Revit. And half of them said that they saved nearly $25,000 a year by creating these visualizations in-house. So I don't know if you're farming this type of thing out to somebody else, but you don't need to do that. If you buy the Building Design Suite, which probably some of you may already have, or you may be looking into, or the Infrastructure Design Suite, you get all of the software that allows you or somebody in your company to make these great visualizations. Or you can farm it out and spend the money. It's up to you. And I just thought I'd throw this in so that, just for those of you, this is just to kind of prove how visualization is so powerful and actually so close nowadays to the actual products. I'm sure many of you are familiar with IKEA. Yet half of the IKEA catalog are actually not photographs, they're actually renderings, which is a pretty amazing statistic. I would argue that's why when you buy something from IKEA, it may not actually fit together, right? But that's a whole other story. But it's pretty amazing what you can do now with software and how easy it is to do it with software. And this is actually from a story from Marriott, of course a large company. They used to physically create lobbies and physically create hotel rooms that the hotel owners would go to visit to decide what type of lobby or remodel for rooms or whatever they wanted to go with. And they decided that they were going to stop doing that and they were going to switch over to rendering. So taking a look at these two pictures, one is a photograph and the other is a rendering. I think it's amazing how close they are. And I'm not sure if you, looking at the screen, can tell which is which. You can pick one for yourself. We'll never know. And I'm going to tell you that the one on the left, that's the one, that's the actual photograph. And I'll give you a tip how I can tell that, or how you can tell that. There really aren't as many things in that photo, in that picture. I mean, oh, sorry, there are more things in that picture than the one with the rendering. When you're doing a rendering, you don't want too many things in there because it's just a lot more work. So usually you'll see renderings are nice and neat and tidy and clean. The photograph on the left has a few extra things on the shelf and so on and so forth. And if you're a rendering expert, there are many more things that you can see in there. But for the layman, for you and me, you know, the one on the right looks great. I totally get the concept. I totally understand it. It looks like a photograph to me. So here's an example of a product that we have called InfraWorks 360, which is a fairly new product at Autodesk, and taking a Revit model of a stadium and putting it into the InfraWorks 360 cities, as you would say, city layouts that they have on here. You can see that it's very clear to you. I know you guys probably aren't building stadiums, but I think the point here is that you can use a product like InfraWorks 360, which is a very friendly, easy product, and you can put Revit models into InfraWorks 360 to really sell your design and help companies know what your vision is. I'm doubting that you're doing stadiums, though. That's quite an effort. I'll tell you, InfraWorks 360, fabulous product, easy to use. So much of it's already developed for you. And this is actually a video that I wasn't quite able to get to display on the webcast. So but I want to talk about it because I think it kind of gives you an idea of the power of visualization. This is a company in Wellington in New Zealand called Arc House, an architectural firm. And they wanted to build this multi-story residential building in the downtown area of Wellington. So they went to the city planners and they said, hey, this is our goal. And they said no, and they told them to go away. They didn't want this big building in the historic downtown area. And so this company really had just started using BIM. They had started using Revit, but they decided that they weren't going to give up. And they built 4 different Revit models of what their view was of this residential building. And they were able to show the residential building in the actual neighborhood. That's, you know, a very powerful thing to be able to do. So they could actually see what this building would look like in its exact position. They went back to the city planners. They had 4 different models. They showed it to the city planners, and the city planners changed their mind based just on this visualization. And they also selected the model they thought would fit the most into the neighborhood. Very, very powerful, the visualization. I think that you'll find if you start to adopt visualization in any way that you will win more proposals and you'll be able to communicate your vision much more effectively. And incidentally, this is a very, very green building. It's one of the early green buildings in New Zealand. It has regenerative elevators. It has a beautiful park on the top. because Wellington is a very, very windy town, they were able to harness some of that wind, and actually they're able to create their own electricity to power the building. Not all of it, but like 40% of it. So it's a very green building, and now the town is very, very proud of it. So it had a happy ending. And then this is, to me, one of the things, if you can't appeal to anybody with all these other advantages to BIM, I'll tell you that when it's all said and done, just the fact that you can make all the construction documents, all those 2D drawings that you normally need to create, that, you know, all the drawing views, the schedules, the elevations, everything is generated from the model. So you create the model and you pull all of this information off of it, all of the views. It's just such a more logical workflow, because that also means that if you change the model, that these drawing views and schedules and elevations, everything will update automatically without you even having to think of it. Imagine how much time you spend doing that rework when changes occur, even though I'm sure changes never happen in your industry, but just in case they do. This is phenomenal. You know, you need to change a detail number, you can change it on one sheet and it will reflect it on all the sheets. It's just the coordination is just absolutely amazing when you're dealing with the land of BIM. One of my favorite things about the whole land of BIM. So as I mentioned to you, there's the McGraw-Hill Smart Report for many different industries. I highly recommend you take a look at them. Great if you can't go to sleep at night. You can download them for free. They're amazing. They're well put together. There's high level, there's nitty-gritty level, whatever makes you happy. So I'm just going to throw some facts out there. These are from the latest reports that they put out. 65% of building owners are requesting BIM in the U.S. and in Western Europe, and I'll tell you that there's a huge percentage all over the world, depending on how developed the country is. No surprise, because building owners will ultimately save money on their buildings if they have a project team that's using BIM. Overall BIM adoption in the AEC industry went from 49% in 2008 to over 70% in 2012 in 4 years. That's impressive. That is a huge surge, and it keeps going up. And that's 2 years ago. I know it's higher than that now. So you don't want to be in that 30%. You really don't. Half of the civil firms are using BIM. They may not be using it, 100%, totally jumping in with both feet, but they're at least using some aspect of BIM. I think the civil firms are probably the slowest in the adoption cycle, if you were just asking personally. 70% of architects have adopted BIM. More than 75% of architects work in small offices of 10 or less. So, kind of pull those stats out from there. Most of you work in offices of 10 or less. So don't think that just because you're in a small office that you shouldn't adopt BIM, because you should. 67% of structural and MEP are participating in BIM projects. 74% of contractors, I think that they actually have had the biggest surge, construction. And 90% of medium to large size organizations have adopted BIM. Why is that important to you? Some of you will be consulting to the large organizations, but almost all of the small companies at some point will get pulled in to the technology that the large organizations adopt. We all know how that works, right? 2/3 of the BIM users see a positive ROI in their overall investment within the first year. All right, so that's not 100%. Some of you may not see that see that return on investment on your money within the first year. It'll be close to that. We'll talk about that in more detail later. It just kind of depends on how well you implement it, how fast you implement it. It depends on a variety of factors. I just want to be realistic and not tell you that everybody is making zillions of dollars 5 minutes after they decide to move to BIM. Clash detection, avoiding rework, that's probably the most popular aspect of it to building owners, which completely makes sense. Once again, saves them money. And I already mentioned this, that the contractors totally get it. They have a very high ROI. It's easy for them, much easier for them to see the advantages. And I think this is important too. The most engaged users enjoy the strongest BIM benefits. And I had the luxury of participating in a presentation with Steve Jones, and who is one of the people that works for McGraw-Hill. And, he said definitely the companies that jump in with both feet into BIM, and you don't have to do that right away, okay? You can take it, in fact, it's almost impossible to do it right away. But when you do get to that point where you have jumped in with both feet, you will have the strongest, the highest ROI. If you just kind of dip your toes in and you keep just your toes in, it's really not going to be profitable for you. And I just like to put this in because I find it amusing. So as I mentioned to you, the UK was one of the first countries, if not the first country, to start to mandate that the companies that do projects with them are using BIM. And so, you know, it's a lot of people are running around trying to figure out how to do that. And there's a task group, who I've met several members of the task group, called the UK BIM Task Group. And they put out a paper. You can find that. So Google that, the UK BIM Task Group. They have quite detailed information on to help companies move to BIM in the UK. And I still love this quote. BIM authoring tools cost about the same as a pint and a half of beer a day. See, in the US, we would never see that in one of our documents. I love that. But I think the point there is illustrating that ultimately it's not that expensive of an investment. All right, and then this is for those of you in infrastructure. I kind of feel like I always leave you guys behind. Just know that there's a McGraw-Hill SMART report that you can look at, get facts and figures, but you can see that the implementation is definitely accelerating. And now let's just have a little bit of fun. For those of us who are still living in the land of 2D, I'm sure many of you have seen this picture. If it was a 3D model, I like to think this would not happen. This is actually a revision cloud that a contractor decided was actually supposed to be part of the ceiling. So these are all real pictures. And this is what happens when you can't do clash detection. I like to think that if it was a true BIM project, that somebody would have modeled the lampposts and somebody would have modeled those terraces there, and they could have run some clash detection and realized that that wasn't going to work. Although I applaud the contractor for working around the problem, I guess. And here you have a situation where you have mechanical and architectural that meet, right? But nobody talked to each other. So as a result, we basically have an escalator that nobody can use unless you're really tiny. If you're little itty bitty, you probably could. And one of the great things about Autodesk is we have manufacturing products and we have architectural products. We could put this all together and we could make sure that it fits before we got to this stage. I have to ask myself, honestly, how did it get to this stage? Like, they just kept building it. Like, nobody said, hey, Joe, I don't think this is going to work. Really? I think I would have noticed. They just kept plotting, moving forward, didn't they? And then I told you I travel a lot, which always sounds much more glamorous than it is, I promise you, and I have bad travel luck. I really do have bad travel luck for somebody who spends so much time on the road, and if I asked for a balcony, I'm pretty sure I'd get the one on the bottom there. And then this is my favorite. This is the ATM that was just way too high for anybody to actually use. Once again, if you had a 3D model, you would be able to tell that this was too far off the ground. With, it's funny though. It's kind of sad that those really happened. Even when they put it in, didn't they notice it was kind of high? I'm just saying. All right, so there's a whole bunch of reasons for you to move to BIM. Hopefully you found some in there that were appealing to you. And now I kind of want to address, like, well, all right, so let's say you say, yay, Lynn, I totally want to jump on the BIM bandwagon. And so what do I do now? So let's talk a little bit about that, about how you move forward once you've decided to make that decision. So the first thing that you absolutely should not do, and I know this because I've been to many companies where this has happened, is if you decide you're the building owner and you go back to your office and say you're moving to BIM and you're all going to like it, so that's the way it is, that is it's totally ineffective and very painful to all the people that work for you. So let's not do that, okay? Let's win the employees over. Everybody needs to get on board, and we're going to win them over, and we're going to tell them all the reasons why they should make the move over to BIM. But let's keep talking about this. So if you don't get your staff on board, which is absolutely key, it could actually keep you from being successful in BIM, and you will not be able to move forward. And you'll see this quote a lot if you go to any BIM conferences, that it's 10% technology and 90% sociology, and I believe that, absolutely believe that. So very, very important that your whole staff is on board and everybody's excited, maybe not as excited as these people are on the screen, but that they're looking forward to adopting this new technology. I have personally been brought into a few companies because I have such a strong AutoCAD background, and in most cases people are moving from AutoCAD to Revit or something along those lines, and I've been brought in many situations to try to win the AutoCAD people over to help them move forward. So I completely understand this aspect of the BIM process. So moving to BIM is a change in process and In most cases, a change in technology. If you're in the civil industry, you're already probably on Civil 3D, and that really is the solution for you, along with some of the other products in the infrastructure design suite, maybe some of the visualization packages. I mean, you guys have it the easiest. You don't have to make as many at least you don't have to make as big a technology change. But both of these are big hurdles. So let's take a look at some realities. And Robert Green helped me put this slide together in case he's listening. I hate to not give people credit. So the software totally changes, right? In many cases, not all. The work product model totally changes. That's going to be the case for all. The workflow totally changes. So, and I wonder why anybody would be worried about that, right? It's a big deal. It is a big deal. We're going to make it a smaller deal, though, by the time I get off the phone with you. Let's keep going. So the biggest barrier to BIM, in my view, is that fear of change. And there are people that are on the cutting edge of technology, and they love that. But by far, the majority of people in the workforce have a fear of change. And when you move to BIM, there's a lot of change that happens. And there's actually a phobia for the fear of change. And you think about what's happening. What if I can't do it? What if, we're a team, especially in a small office, you don't want to upset the other people on the team because it's, bigger offices, I think it's almost a little easier, but smaller offices, you want the whole company to be successful, and you don't want to be the person that causes any problems or issues. And there's a fear also of leaving a comfort zone. There's a lot of fear involved in making the move. And I thought I'd mention this book, Who Moved My Cheese? It's a very valuable book for people that are resistant to change. I totally can understand. I myself am not a big fan of change. I get teased about it a lot, even though my job changes all the time. And I had 3 different people who gave me this book, just in case you think I'm making it up. 3, not 2, not 1, but 3 different people. And one other person that was going to give it to me but saw that I already had it. So it's a very valuable, low-stress book to read if you have a fear of change or someone else in the office does. It's about mice. It's pretty entertaining, but it does get the point across. Excuse me. And then there's also, as I mentioned to you, that let's take a look at, this change in the process. What does that mean? So there's more emphasis and time placed on the early design. There's more time spent on the model in the early phases, right? Less time spent on the construction documents. And the extended design teams, in many cases, depending on how, where you are in the industry, but they're going to become involved earlier in the process. So you might be brought in before the building is fully developed just to make sure that the original design makes sense from an MEP standpoint or a civil standpoint or a structural, whatever the situation is. And as I mentioned to you before, that 3D model is assembled the same way a building is constructed, something we've never had to think about in the land of AutoCAD before. And I also am going to point out a reality. So you're not going to move to BIM overnight. Don't think that you will. It's because there is such a big change, it will take some time, and you need to completely understand that. And if you have bad expectations, you'll give up, and that's why I don't want you to think that it will happen overnight. It will take time, and how much time depends on how much training you get and how fast your staff adapts to making the move to BIM. There's so many variables involved there, and you may have to invest in different software. So I don't know what you already have, but you may need to invest in, say, the building design suite or the infrastructure design suite, depending on what your industry is. You may have to invest in better hardware. So that's probably one of the things that small companies have is a pretty big obstacle, because you're so careful with expenses, of course, but if you continue to use old hardware and you buy this new software, it will go so slow and it will lock up that ultimately, if you were to take a look at how much time you've spent and figure out how much that's worth, you would just be better in upfront just investing in better hardware. And of course, as time goes on, that hardware price is coming down, and you can get some great workstations for much less money than we could before. But it's very important that you do invest in good hardware if you don't already have it. And as I mentioned, it's going to take some time to get up and running, and it's a continual learning process, so that you'll learn more as time goes on. You'll get better, you'll get faster, and become more efficient. And as I mentioned, you're going to spend more time on your model at the beginning. And like I also mentioned to you, you don't need to jump into BIM with both feet to begin with. I don't think that you probably can. I guess unless you have a really big lag time at work, you still need to get your projects out the door, so you still need to be successful. You can put a few toes in at a time, but eventually You really do need to jump in with both feet to see a big ROI. So code dipping only works for a while, but it's a good way to start. So even though I think the change in process is way bigger than the change in technology, to the employees, maybe even to you, that change in technology seems to be what people are the most worried about. In most cases, it's making the move to AutoCAD to Revit, or pick your software product of choice. Okay? That seems to be the biggest fear, and I can't emphasize enough how that should not be a big fear. So let's take a look at why we are afraid. Many people really know AutoCAD. They're well versed in it. They can get their jobs done with it. They've probably spent a lot of time learning the individual aspects of AutoCAD. There's a lot of confidence there. Some people may have even learned customization and some programming. They may have tried 3D in AutoCAD and perhaps didn't have the best experience with it. If they are using 3D in AutoCAD, that's more power to them because they can totally make the move to Revit so easily. And they don't really know much about Revit. They just know it's completely different, and they know that they don't know how to use it, right? But in reality, let me just give you some Revit benefits. It's way easier to learn than AutoCAD. So AutoCAD was designed over 30 years ago. There's about 10 different ways of doing anything. And I don't know if any of you remember when you first learned AutoCAD, but AutoCAD is hard to learn. It is hard to learn. It's easier to learn than it was 30 years ago, but it's still a difficult product to learn. I promise you, if you can learn AutoCAD, you can totally learn Revit. It's easier, it's newer, it's fresher, it uses new technology, so the user interface is friendlier, and it was designed specifically for the land of AEC, as opposed to AutoCAD, which is kind of all things to all people. And you're working with walls and doors and windows, as opposed to lines, arcs, and circles, or depending on the flavor of Revit that you have. But makes so much more sense. As I mentioned to you before, as the model changes in Revit, it's automated across all the sheets and all the views. That whole change it once, change it everywhere is just such a beautiful thing to an AutoCAD user. No more polylining. It's much less tedious to work with. So much of the 3D is generated automatically, unlike inside of AutoCAD. And it's just much easier to use the 3D in Revit than it is in AutoCAD. And then after the learning curve, because there is a learning curve whenever you switch to any software product, you're going to get your jobs done faster. It's just that simple. Once you figure it out, you're going to be you're just going to be stunned at how fast those construction documents are created. And from a personal level, adding BIM to their resume, or adding Revit to their resume, or adding any of these software products to their resume is going to just make everyone more valuable in the future. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be more valuable in the future. I know I do. I want to continually change and update and learn new technology so that I can be worth more in the future. Don't you? I want to make more money. How about you? I do. It also lets you think design and not CAD, which is so important, so very, very important. Let's stop focusing on whether or not I did trim these lines that make us, that have to do with walls, and let's just focus on the actual design. It's going to change everybedy's view. Everybody's going to be more satisfied, really, because they'll be more involved in the design aspect. And then also, companies who adopt BIM are being seen as more progressive. And as an employee, I want to work for a company that's progressive, right? I'm sure you want your company to be progressive so that you can continue to win more projects and make more money. And that's kind of the next one. Ultimately, you'll make more money. That's kind of the goal of when you're in business, for the most part, is to be profitable, be able to feed your families, be able to pay your employees, and be profitable. So very, very important, and something I find that small businesses often don't necessarily do as well as some of the larger companies is the training aspect. And I promise you, if you just throw the building design suite on somebody's desk and say, hey, you learn this and get us up to speed on BIM, it's going to be ugly, it's going to be hard, and it's going to take a long time. Could it still happen? Of course. There are plenty of self-taught users out there. But I highly recommend that you get somebody who knows what they're doing, who knows the software if you change software, and who knows the BIM process that can help train your employees on all things BIM. And timing is really important. If you don't have a project, don't train them. If they don't have anything to do when they get back to the office, they'll forget. You probably have to train them again. So you really need to do a just-in-time training. Just plan it perfectly so that as soon as they get out of that class, that they can work on a project. And then, If you don't have any BIM expertise in your company, I recommend that you find a consultant who can at least help you get off the ground in the beginning. I'm not saying you have to hire them forever, but definitely you're going to need someone to help lead the way. It is very difficult, in my view, to kickstart it all on your own with no expertise and no knowledge. So you can hire a BIM manager if you have the budget to do so, but most small companies tend to work with consultants. And if you're on subscription, you also have access to some help as far as the software is concerned if you run into issues with the software. And I also think it's valuable to work with other companies because maybe, let's say, you're an MEP firm. I think it's helpful to work with other companies that already have that BIM expertise, so you can ask them questions and you can kind of be pulled along by them. So if you can sort that out. Working with other people who already get it is always helpful, right? And hopefully somewhere in the company, and I'm hoping that now it's you have a BIM champion. This is going to be your cheerleader. It's going to help get everybody on board. And it could be the consultant that you bring in, but oftentimes you have somebody in the company who really wants to make the move to BIM. If you're listening to this presentation, I like to think it could be you. But definitely find someone who's going to keep everybody happy and on board through the good times, through the bad times. Definitely a cheerleader. It will help. You need someone that's really focused on that. Let them know that's their job. Your job is to rally the troops and to try to keep everybody on board and positive about this transition. And a BIM execution plan is essential. If you hire a consultant, they'll help you with your first BIM execution plan. But there are a variety of places that you can go. I mean, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plan that's going to help you implement BIM. You're going to decide what your goals are. You're going to decide the route that you're going to take to get there. There are a variety of papers that you can look at or information that's up online, Google away. Very popular, and I'm going to leave this on here for a second, but remember this is being recorded, or you can send an email at the end and I'll send you the same information. But there's the BIM protocol E202 from the AIA, very, very popular. And then there's also an aspect of a level of development so that you know exactly how much detail that you need to put into your models. That was produced by the BIM Forum. You can just Google BIM Forum level of development. You'll find it very easily. And the BIM execution plan by Penn State, man, super popular. Talked about all the time. You might want to take a look at that. And then, of course, we have on the Autodesk University website lots and lots and lots and lots, and I'll say more lots, of online courses that you can take absolutely for free that will provide you information. But there is a course up there by Kate Moracle that's focused on BIM for the small business. You won't be able to watch that class like you can watch a lot of the other classes, but she did write a great document that you, I'm sure, would find very helpful. And then as you develop the execution plan, more detailed the better, it's important that everybody buys into it. Hopefully there'll be no stragglers. Everybody's in. Everybody needs to be in. And then you're going to jump in, right? You're going to have your first pilot project. Depending on how big your company is, you may not have everybody involved in it. Definitely start with the ones that you think are going to be the most successful, the ones that are more on board with BIM than the others. And you want an easy project. You don't want it to be a stadium or I don't know, an amphitheater or whatever the situation is. You want it to be something fairly low stress. Maybe like a single-story building, maybe 2 stories with regular floor plans. I don't recommend a renovation. In those situations, you probably wouldn't want to create a whole model for a renovation. But maybe steel frame with a consistent column grid. Things like that make it easier to produce your first project. And of course, I'm talking more architecturally focused, so I apologize to the civil folks out there. You guys, I guess you're just going to start off with a short road, a little tiny bridge. And then I'm just going to give you the pep talk now. You can send me an email and I'll tell you not to give up, all right? Don't give up and go back to your non-BIM ways. It happens. It will happen. You're going to want to go back to your non-BIM ways because you're comfortable, but you have to really hang in there. Keep moving forward, move forward, move forward, move forward. So you guys need me as a cheerleader. Just call me. I'll cheer you on. And then if you are upper management or whoever the upper management is in your company, or maybe there isn't, everybody's, it's such a small company, but you just have to be very supportive and very, very patient because it does take time, and you can't rush the BIM process. Later, when you get good at it, you can rush it. So when you're all done, you're going to have a great, well-trained, happy workforce. The projects are going to get done faster. You're going to win more business, and ultimately, I like to think everybody is going to be more profitable. And I think this also is a testament to the value of BIM. Those who really make the move to BIM jump in, they totally get it, very, 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 very rarely go back. I wanted to put they never go back, but I'm sure there's some person somewhere that went back. But you don't hear about people that get into BIM and are enthusiastic about it and successful at it that ever say, I want to go back to the 2D CAD process. It just doesn't happen. And you also don't find people who make the move over to Revit who say, oh, I just want to go back to AutoCAD. Not if they fully understand Revit. So that's from a software standpoint. You should realize that. They may complain at first, but they'll be glad. And you will have some that don't want to do it. Hopefully you don't. But what do you do with them? Well, I think that AutoCAD is still an important part of the BIM process. You might use that for landscape architecture or for some detail work, or especially if you are doing a renovation, maybe it's easier just to take your AutoCAD drawing and make changes. I think that there's still a use for the people that don't want to make the move, and you'll know who they are because they'll tell you that they could have done it faster in AutoCAD, which is probably true in the beginning. It reminds me of the days when I first started teaching AutoCAD, and the biggest competitor to CAD was drafting on a paper with a pencil, right? That was the biggest competition. And I used to have to beg the students to stay in the class, and they used to always say, I could have done this faster by hand. I cannot even tell you how many times I heard that. But the power here comes in the changes, comes in the edits. It comes with the, working with the different disciplines. It comes with saving money ultimately in the construction phase. There's so many aspects of BIM that are positive that you just can't get by just using AutoCAD. So I'll tell you, if somebody who really makes the move to Revit doesn't want to ever go back and use AutoCAD, so you'll need at least one AutoCAD guy maybe hanging around that still can stand it to use it. Listen to me. All right, we're almost finished. Hang in there. It's like we're kind of running out of time, and I'm just about done. So super fast, running through with the summary. You're going to decide to move to BIM, and you're going to hang on to that. You're not going to give up, right? And you're going to bring your employees into the BIM light. You're going to convince them. You're going to tell them why it's so great for them to make the move to BIM and so great for the company. And then you're going to decide how you're going to get that workforce ready, and you're going to let them know that you're not going to leave them hanging, that you have a developed plan, a training plan to get them all on board. And then you have that BIM execution plan that's going to include the training on the software, training on the process, once again to get the troops ready, and where you're going to hire, if you don't have one in-house that you think that you can rely on, a BIM manager or consultant to help you at least with the first project or two. You're going to find a cheerleader who's going to keep everybody on board and keep them positive, and you're going to start with a small project and work up to larger projects. And a small project at a good time frame. And most companies kind of wind down in December and early January, which is coming up, like next month. Perfect time for you to take on the first BIM project. And then you're going to make some modifications to the plans as you go. You're not going to get it right the first time. Don't beat yourself up if you don't get it right the first time. You're going to document it, and you're not going to make the mistakes that you did the first go around. You're going to learn and get better at it as you go on. Check-in meetings are really important. Get everybody in the same room, same time, and let's talk about what's happening, what the problems are, the issues are, and figure out how to move forward. Check-in meetings, super important, I'll tell you. I find that successful companies have a lot of check-in meetings to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then you need to listen to your staff. They need to know that you're listening to them and that you care and that you are going to address their concerns. Once again, learn from your mistakes. And then just like that cat who's sitting there outside waiting for that mouse to come out, you have to be very patient during the transition. It is a change. But once you make the change, you will be so glad that you did. So, so glad that you did. So making the move to BIM is the right decision, just like CAD was 25 years ago. I'm going to say it was 30 years ago, personally. Not for me personally, but it's been around a long time. So definitely, I'm hoping that this presentation inspired you to at least start to think more as far as BIM, the direction of BIM. Take a look at some of our products for the BIM process, and there you go. There's my email. So if you make the move to BIM and you're having a hard time and you need a pep talk, you can email me. I'll give you the pep talk. Okay? All right. So on that note, I'm going to turn it back over to Barbara.
Okay, Lynn, I have a few
There.
questions. Yes, yes, I'm here. It was so entertaining. It was so much fun, especially the cloud on the
Oh,
concrete.
okay.
I'm
So,
still laughing. We have some questions from our BIM champions. So the first question is, what is RFI? It was at the beginning of the presentation. Do you know what they refer to?
well, that's when you're making changes, right?
Okay.
Request for information. Maybe it goes back to architect to ask for more information. Maybe whenever more information, so it stands for request for information.
Okay.
And that's a scenario where you have to, slow down the process, get some information, maybe make some changes, and, that type of information, if it's included in the model, once again, the building information model, right? If that's already included in the model, there'll be less of that slowing down the building process. And I'm going to try to change the presenter back to you. So you probably, do you have a closing screen?
Oh, sure.
Barbara?
Sure. I will have to do that. I will have to do that. I'm going to do
I gave
this.
it back to you. There you go.
I'm going to do this right now. Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can.
Oh, great. So the other questions I have is...
Please only ask me questions I know the answers to.
All right. Deal. Does InfraWorks 360 contain the missing models of urban elements, other buildings, or is that do-it-yourself?
So InfraWorks 360 basically does kind of a combination of the land of Google Earth, and you can include existing Revit buildings in there as well. A lot of the cities have already been developed and you have access to, not all the cities. But the cool thing about it is it can very, very quickly create a wonderful landscape of a city that you can in turn add your models into. It's if you want more information, you can go to Autodesk.com and take a look at InfraWorks 360. There's actually a couple of really good videos on there, one by James Wedding, that will take you through and explain to you what InfraWorks 360 can and cannot do. It's a great program. It's a cloud application. It's fabulous. I'll tell you, it's all the rave. I hear about it all the time. So definitely take a look at that. Go to the Autodesk.com website and have a look at that.
Cool. That's really cool. Now, somebody had a question about the McGrath report, and it was wondering if the percentages are in the U.S. They refer to work on private or public projects. So
that's a very good question. So there are different reports for the different, well, I don't know exactly what you'd call them. There's one for North America. There's one for Europe. I know that Australia has one. There's a variety of different reports that they put out for for different geographical locations. And inside the document, I am pretty sure that they do list information on private versus public. I know they do large companies versus small companies to some aspect. There are a lot of facts and figures in there. So a lot of the facts I gave were from North America because that's where we are right now. But I just did the same presentation in Australia, so I had slightly different numbers and facts and figures based on the McGraw-Hill report for that location.
Okay.
So you can find one for you, for your industry, in your geographical location.
Awesome. Somebody is also asking if you could email them directly some testimonials from local small firms, for instance, in Chicago, regarding their transition and cost implication. I don't know if you can do that. I have the email, so should they email you?
Yeah, if they can email me.
Okay.
Once again, hopefully you saw that lynn.allen at autodesk.com, LYNN.ALLEN at autodesk.com. That would just, I think, make it easier. And then what I would do is I don't have that information. I don't just have it laying around. But I can find someone that can get you some information.
Great. That's great news.
Someone who's from Chicago, who's been working with, some of the local customers. But
you know people, I see. Great.
We know people.
You know people.
I don't know the answer, but I know people who do.
Great. You've had great feedback throughout the presentation, so love the presentation.
I love that.
You're my hero, Lynn. I mean, all sort of great feedback, I know. And yes, and they're also asking, when is Autodesk a PC program developer are going to realize we don't use Mac in the field, please create apps for Android or Windows 8.1. That's a plead.
That's a plead.
Not a question. Yeah.
So I think I heard you was a plea to
Yes.
provide more apps for the Mac.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I totally get that. You can run almost all these apps on Boot Camp and things like that, but I understand you want to have one in the native environment. I totally get it. Totally get it, especially architectural. I don't know what field the person was who wrote the question. I totally get it and understand.
Okay, there's one request to have your email again.
Okay, so do you want to switch back over to me because it's on that last slide?
Absolutely.
All right. There you go, Lynn.Allen at Autodesk.com.
There it is. Take notes, guys.
Only send nice emails, please.
Of course. Of course. And chocolates.
And chocolates, sure. If you can figure out how to send chocolate over email, I'll take them.
There's an app for you. There's an app idea.
I'm sure there is. That's a great app.
Okay, then one more question. Are there specific solutions, software solutions specifically, for building rehab, especially for historic preservation, conservation? Also, is there an ability to import laser scans and point clouds and construct models from this data?
Okay, so there's two questions. So the first one has to do, is there a specific app for, was it historic?
Software solution for building rehab or specifically for historic preservation, conservation?
So there are companies that have done it. Is there an app? Is there an app for that?
Like a software solution, something that will.
Software solution. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things when you're dealing with something historic, which is what I believe it sounds like they're doing, is there's probably not an AutoCAD drawing, there's probably, right? They need to do measuring and they probably need to start from scratch. And that's probably why they asked the second question that had to do with point clouds, because when you're dealing with something historic, it's a great opportunity to take a scanner in, scan it to get all the information and bring that into an app. So there have been plenty of successful companies using BIM who have worked with historic buildings. Is there an app out there for that? I don't know. Maybe there is. It's the same basic process. You just have some other factors that you need to worry about. And then the second question had to do with the scanning. Was, is there a way to? Yeah,
is there an ability to import laser scans and point clouds and construct models from this data?
Is there a process to enforce it? Is that what you said?
To import laser scans.
Import. Oh, import. Yeah. For some reason I kept hearing enforce. So import. Oh, absolutely. So you can bring point clouds into Revit. You can bring them into Civil 3D. You can bring them into AutoCAD. Tons of work in that area. We have a product called Recap that's free. Comes with all of the products that I talked about today. You can probably even, I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't download it, but Recap takes point clouds and really streamlines them, because one of the problems with point clouds is they're huge files in many cases. I'm sure if you had an historic building like you were talking about, that would be a huge file of probably billions of points. So Recap can take those files and streamline them and make it really easy for you to bring them into Revit or AutoCAD or Civil 3D or pick your product of choice. So absolutely you can import point clouds, and a lot of companies do. And somebody in your industry, judging by your question, it's a perfect example of how a great way to use point clouds.
Cool. Last question. So
you keep saying
I keep saying that, but I mean it now. How do you exchange data with energy analysis software?
How do you exchange the data with energy analysis software? Well, I suppose it depends on the energy analysis software. If you are working with the Autodesk energy analysis software, you basically, they're all cloud applications, and you take your model and you upload that information from your model into the applications, and then the analysis will occur. I would imagine if it's not an Autodesk energy analysis program, they're still going to ask you to take the model. I don't know how much of the aspect of the model they would want you to bring in, but they would, I'd like to think they'd take a look at the overall model and evaluate it for consumption and things like that, and sustainability. So the ones with Autodesk, I mean, that's actually just actually a really good question, because any type of analysis is a slow process. It can be a very slow process. It could take hours, could take days, and that's really where a cloud application is extremely valuable, because you can just take that model and throw it up into the cloud and let the power of the cloud, all that computing power, do the analysis while you continue to use your computer. When the analysis is done, which I can guarantee you will be much faster in the cloud than it would be on your own workstation, then you get the results of the analysis. So I'm thinking that's what they're asking. You would have to have a model to run the energy analysis, of course.
Yes.
Excuse me.
Okay, Lynn, I'm going to take
another presentation. If you want a presentation on the cloud, we'll come back and do another one of those.
I'll take your word on it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to write it down and stay tuned. I'm going to take the screen back, so you should be able to see my screen now.
There you go.
And I'm going to wrap it up. I'm so sorry. I could listen to Lynn for hours, but, you know, yeah. We'll have to have a repeat. We'll have to have that next webinar on the cloud. So I want to thank everybody from attending. Thank you so much from the Novedge team. Visit our page at novedge.com and check out Autodesk Building Design Suite 2015 and Revit. Novedge is the best way to buy design software online. Come on, take the plunge. If there's one thing that this webinar taught me, is that fear should not be an issue, right? Or an obstacle, right? Where's the, yeah, where did they put my cheese? Was it? Okay. Who moved my cheese? There it is. I can find it. For information on the latest specials and new releases, join the Novedge network on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter, and subscribe to the Novedge blog. I want to remind everybody that our next webinar will be in 2 weeks, and it will be Meet Vectorworks Landmarks 2015 and its fantastic new features. To watch today's webinar or previous one, check out our Novedge YouTube and Vimeo channels, our webinar playlist as webinars for every software taste. Thanks again for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Thank you, Lynn. Lots and lots of Belgian pralines might come to you via email or any other way. And have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye-bye.